It's gonna get, it looks like everybody's in. Hi, it's good to see you. How are you guys doing tonight or this afternoon if you're on the West Coast like me? Awesome. I just wanted to give you guys a quick run through of the Zoom. So it is a recorded class and there is closed captioning. And if you run into any issues during class, tech issues or questions, Felicia will help you with it. So you can just message Felicia and she will help you with anything you're struggling with in the Zoom. And it's recorded, and by about Monday or so, there will be a replay emailed out to everyone who's here. All right, so Felicia, did I get everything there? Is it good?
You did, good job.
Awesome, okay, all right. And so today's class is really fun. It's just a free form, create different kinds of edging for your beadwork, because I get asked a lot about different designs that are very simple, created the same way, for example, loomed pieces or a peyote stitch design or a square stitch design, and whatever it is that you've made, you can just level it up by adding a really cool edge. And so I get asked about it so much, I thought, well, let's just make it we'll make it a class, make it a workshop, and we'll just share ideas. I'm sure while we're working through this that you'll get more ideas as you're looking at it. You're like, oh yeah, well, what if I did this or that? And that happened in one of our classes last year. Last summer, we taught the embellished peyote cuff. I think it was in August of 2020. And during that class, somebody in class said, hey, what if you just, did one different thing? And they came up with a completely different idea, and it ended up in this, actually in this handout, because it was such a great one. So lots of ideas will come up like that today, and we'll have lots of fun. And then at the end, I'll show you guys some finished samples of other things you can do. All right, so here on the mat, I've got my usual stitching products. So I've got the size 10 beading needles and some Wildfire thread, which is the 0.006 Wildfire that we usually use. And for seed beads, kind of the sky's the limit, but for a base, there is a base band that becomes, your edged piece when we edge it. The base band, I made that with size 8s, and you don't have to use size 8s, but I thought for the purpose of demonstrating today, just changing one variable helps to explain better than changing multiple variables. So I'm sticking with the size 8 base, but just know that you're not set or stuck with that. You can change that up and make modifications, and these edges will still work with different size base beads. But I have handy a bunch of different things here. I've got some size 6 beads. I've got some size 8s. I've got size 10s. And you could use 11s, that's great too. I use 10s because if I can use a bigger bead on camera, I always decide to do that. And then I've got a bunch of SuperDuos and Bugles, so we can just try all these different ideas out and see what they look like. All right, and Felicia, I'm ready to show them that. Thank you, thanks so much. All right, okay, so here on the mat is a close-up view of the thread and the needles. And just a close-up view of the edging. And I'm just going to go in order of what's in the handout. We'll start with the Picot, and we'll just keep going through from there. And I thought right before we get into the edging, in case anybody's curious about this base, this is a super fast way. The reason I did this is because it's quick, and I just wanted something to get me here so I could do my edge. But I'll show you how I made this. And in case it's new to anybody, it's really, really fun way to, just use up some mates and create a really fun design. And you don't have to use the counts I'm using, but if you want to make this one, you'll want to pick up 8 beads to start. And this is even count peyote stitch, but I'm going to treat the every 2 beads as a single bead. And for those of you that were here last week, you'll recognize some of the tricks to getting started. So there's our 8 beads, just kind of on the line there. I'm going to bring the light over here. There we go. It's a little better. Okay. All right. And so pick up 2 more size 8 beads, or whichever ones you've chosen. Skip those first 2 and go through the next 2. And then I'm going to use that trick from last time where we just pull our working and tail thread apart. Kind of help these ones sit. So there's one. Same thing again, just pick up 2 size 8 beads. I'm going to skip 2. And go through the next 2, or the last 2 in this case. And so you get that little peyote stitch starter. And I'm just going to keep that tight and going to start row 3. So picking up 2 more. I'm going to turn and go through my up beads. So my up beads are these 2. So we're just treating it as like one bead, right? So I've got 2 beads on the needle. I'm going through there. And I'll pull that side. The first rows are always loose. So you'll see me doing lots of little tightening and pulling. 2 more beads on the needle. I'm going to go through those last 2. So this is just a nice, easy, fast way to begin to create, just something to embellish. And you can do patterns if you want. You can do stripes. You can do, like kind of like triangle shapes. Those are easy to do, like diagonal stripes. Any pattern that worked for a single peyote stitch, you could kind of translate into a 2-drop. This is what's called 2-drop. You could make this wider by working it with 3. So right now I'm picking up 2, going through 2, skipping 2, going through 2. You could do this with 3s for an even wider band. And so that's pretty much it. That's how I made the sample here. It's made that same way. You just keep going. You can see how fast it goes. You kind of start flying and everything's working out. Yeah, so there's that. And another thing that is really great to see, and I went ahead and left my current working piece at this step so I could show you how easy it is to add thread, because that's something you'll run into with edging. Yeah, if you're going to edge an entire piece, most definitely you'll be adding thread at least once. So here's how to do that on this design. And that's the same process that you've seen me do a lot. And this process will work on other designs like square and loom and regular peyote. It's just that same thing where you kind of just go ahead and weave in and change direction a few times. So I'm just going to do it really quick. That's already pretty solid, but now I need to get to where my old working thread is. And then I'm going to start doing some edging. Get that to not be in my loop there. There we go. And so I'm going to turn around by going down through this one. And then just coming up. So this is just kind of a, whatever direction. It doesn't really matter where you weave in, as long as you're following your existing path. And there we go. So it's okay to trim this now. Just grab my scissors, trim that one. And later on, I'll take this old thread and I'll just weave it back into. But for now, I'm just going to leave it out of the way and flip it over. And then I'm going to start doing a picot edge. So in the handout, a couple of things to note about picot. You don't have to stick with the bead sizes that I've done. I did use a size 10. So this is the section of picot that we're going to do. This top part here. There's 4 little picot dots. I used size 10 rounds here. They're a nice shape for the 8s. And again, this is where your creativity can come in to experiment and play and see. It does look cute with an 8 as well. Matching the size, it looks really neat if you go down to 11s. So there's just lots of different looks that you can achieve with the same stitch and the same process. So here's my 10s. And it's as easy as just picking up 3 of those. So I got 3 of those on the needle here. And from where I'm exiting, which is the last bead on my edge row, just come down through the next one. There's one. And then I'm going to come up through the one that's after that. Oops. Sorry about that. I dropped them. There we go. So down through that one. You can kind of help it by lifting the thread one time to get that little bead on the center to sit kind of like top. And same thing here. I'm just going to come up in the next one. And see, that alone is just super cute. You could do your whole bracelet like that, and it just gives it a nice dimension. And if you're using like a different kind of bead, it would still look really neat. Like for example, let's just go ahead and see what happens if I put some 8s on there. Needs a little more help, but that works too. And that looks great. So definitely play around with, you know, bead sizes, and don't be afraid to try any idea or, you know, any bead you've got that you want to use. This is the chance to use that up. So another thing you can do is a Picot variation. So sometimes when you're working with different kinds of beadwork, going through and making another pass through the beads on the edge isn't always comfortable. Like a lot of designs, they just have, they're very thick. They have a lot of thread passes. For lots of different reasons, you may find yourself not wanting to pass through your beads again when you do your edge. That comes up a lot in different kinds of beadwork that I do. And so, but I like the look of this Picot bead. It's really cute. So one thing you can do is brick stitch it on, so you don't have to dig into the beads again. So same thing, you'd pick up three of your beads. And now instead of going down through my beads, I'm gonna pick up a thread bridge. So again, it's the thread bridges are these, you know, threads that are going from one bead to the next. When we did our turns, I'm just going under it. That's what I did here. I went under this one and then just come back up through the last bead you added. It's less pronounced when you're working with the 10s, but if you feel like it's too flat and you want it to, you know, kind of pop more, you can take that out. And I'll show you what it looks like if I go back one thread bridge. Or I'll just make a knot. Hang on. Where are we? There we go. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm backing out of that thread bridge so I can show a tighter Picot. I went under the second one. But I'm going to go through the first one and see what happens. I'm just playing with it. I'm just experimenting to see which one I like more. And there, that's a little bit more pronounced. What I'm going for is I want that center bead to kind of sit at a 90-degree angle to the ones below it or next to it. So there's more pop there. So to keep going, it's brick stitch ready. So you're not going to pick up the same number of beads. You're going to pick up one less bead than before. So now you just need 2. Go into the next thread bridge. And then the new bead becomes that 90-degree one, that first new bead. I'm going to do that again. So 2 more. Go underneath. And so that's a really fun way to get a really cute Picot without having to go through your beads again. All right. Let's see. So everyone's quiet. So I'm just going to assume everyone's good. But feel free to jump in the chat if not. And so the next thing I'm going to move on to is some really cool waves and ruffles that also are made with just using those size 10s. And so with waves and ruffles, you're kind of, the sky's the limit with these. Bring it back over. There's different ways you can do it. You can do kind of what we were doing before. This one is kind of a weird one. It's actually a brick stitch. It's the third one in our handout. So I'm trying to go in order of the handout, but this is actually the brick version. And this is the waves version. So 3 different ways you can do a ruffle. Oh, am I frozen, guys? I'm gonna hit the later button here. I think I was frozen. Sorry about that if I was. It was frozen for me, but okay.
No, it was okay.
It was?
Yeah.
That's so weird. It was frozen on my screen, so. All right, so I'm gonna start with the ruffle wave, and this is the one from that class that we did in August of last year. And these counts, you don't have to stick with them, but we did 5 in the class, and so I'm sticking to what we did in that one. So you want to just pick up 5 beads, seeing that I've got 5 there. And then go ahead and skip one of the, well, actually, so I need to go back really quick. I'm exiting from one of my last Picots. So bear with me here. I'm going to weave down, so I'm actually exiting from an 8. And head this way. Okay. So exiting from an 8. Now I'm going to pick up those 5 again. So there's 5 on the needle, and skip the next one and go through the one after that. It's just a cute little ruffle. Let's do a few so you can get a look for how it is. And then we did have in the handout a picture of like a kind of a deep sea ocean blue version that we did for that August class. That was a really cute class. I loved that one. And this is also a fast one to get you from point A to point B really quick because you're skipping. So by picking up 5, skip one, come down to the next one. So that's just a cool look. These little waves. But something else you can do to next level that is instead of coming up through the next one like we normally would and add another, burst of 5, what if you went backwards? And so this is that first variation of the ruffle wave. So come back, pick up 5 more. And then now skip one and go through the next. So I skipped that set and I'm going through this one. And the wave will sit in front of the one before it. And so now again, I want to go back. And when I go back through the last one, I want to make sure that my needle stays in front of all of those loops that I've made. And as you get going, that gets important because the needle is going to try to go behind them. So you just want to watch for that. But there's 5 on the needle. I'm going to skip one and go through the next. So that's a really cool look. It also is, this is one of the edges that I consider to be stabilizing. So if you're looking to give yourself some bulk on the side of your piece, if it's needing that in some way, then this is one of those edges that will give it stability. And it looks really intricate and complicated, and you can see it's really just the same thing we were doing before, and it's all just placement. And we did a whole class on this, this version. I'll show you guys one of the, so this was the ruffle version that a student came up with in the class where we were teaching this one. And so, you just keep going and you get this really cool little wavy look. And this looks really neat with mixes too. If you try out like a mix, you get a cool little color flurry going along the side. I'm gonna do one more. And unless anyone has questions about this particular one.
I think we're good, Danielle. Cindy did mention that she loves ruffle edging and she's used it with great success. So I'd be curious to see if any of our other students have been using any of the ruffle techniques. And Sharon just said multicolor would be great if you had bead soup.
Oh yeah, this is another great way to use up a lot of the beads that you might have, because it will just look very intricate and cool to have a bunch of different color in that. I think this is probably one of my favorite ones out of like all the ones today, and probably all time. I just love it.
Danielle, even Millie, our Millie, just said that she's now tempted to go back to her previous bracelets and add it.
Oh yeah, you can take all your previous bracelets, weave in just like we did there, and start edging them. Super fun.
It's beginning to, I feel like all my other bracelets look naked now.
Yeah, and then they're also, if you like, you know, another really awesome thing for them is it hides the, you know how sometimes when you make something, it's got some wander to it, like it's got a bend. If you've ever
Yeah.
made a stitched piece and it's got like, you know, it's kind of doing this a little bit, hides all that, right? So it's just great all around. I'm gonna step up through this next 8. And again, this is a same thing we were doing before, but I wanted to show that you could do this without having to go through the beads. And what I mean by that, I'll show you with 3 and then I'll show you with 5. This is a Picot ruffle, the simplest of which you could just do with 3 beads. And then you just go under that thread bridge again. But instead of coming up through the beads like we did in our brick Picot, just start adding the beads again. So a little different than the Picot version, but pretty darn close.
Danielle, is this what you referred to in the handout as brick stitch wave?
Yeah, that's, yeah, I kind of interchangeably have been calling them ruffles and waves. This is the brick stitch wave or brick stitch ruffle.
Thank you.
And there it is with 3, but don't be afraid to try more. And this is one where you'd really only need to do this if you couldn't get through your beads. That said, it also looks kind of cool. So here's 5. We've been doing 5, so I'll try that. And I'm making a guess about where I might want to travel under this one or this one. Let's try it here. No, let's try it here. It's my gut is telling me to go there, so we'll do that. But it's all just kind of see what it looks like, and it's going to be flatter if you go further away. And it's going to pop up more if you go closer. So go through a closer thread bridge. Let's see what happens. And I've got a little wave there. Looks very similar to this one. In fact, if somebody was looking at your beadwork and trying to distinguish between the two, they'd be hard pressed to tell that this one was bricked and this one was gone through the beads. And it can look really neat as you keep going. I particularly like the look of this kind of a brick stitch edge with just 3. Because it's just very, it just looks like it was meant to be there. You know what I mean? Just kind of looks neat, but I never had to go through the beads to make that. I'm gonna do one more. Here's 5, and I'm gonna skip 1 thread bridge, see what that looks like. Yeah. Okay, and so that's pretty much just an intro to waves and ruffles. As you can see, there's a lot of different things you can do here. You don't have to, you know, you're not locked in to any of these kind of, you know, counts or bead sizes. It's just to get your ideas going. I'm just going to switch color just for fun here. All right, and so there's another really cool technique, and we actually did this one on an earring once, which is kind of like it's a way to fill in the edge of the gap. So you do a square stitch and then you come back on another pass and fill it in. And so this is a 2-step edge. You have to go one direction and then come back. So if you were doing this on like a full length bracelet, you would want to go all the way and then you'd have to come all the way back. So it's a little bit thread hungry, but the back pass doesn't use much thread because it's just straight shot through. Let me show you what I mean. And in the handout, I use 2 different colors of size 10. You don't have to use just size 10 though, of course, you can use any you'd like. But start with the one bead. And I'm exiting from here. I'm going to just go down to the next one. And I'm going to do that a few times. When you do that, your bead will sit at a 90-degree angle on top. It'll just kind of hover there. So there's that. And then remembering to turn and come back up from the next one. Okay, so I just did a few like this. And now I am going to need to do a turn. And the best way to do a turn is just to come down below where your thread is exiting and just kind of loop through the ones below it. So there's one. And here's two. And then I'm just going to come up through here so that I'm where I need to be and go through that last 10 that I added. And now this is one of those things where I know my count is going to be 3 because I've done it before, but if I didn't know, I would just play with it and see how many fit and what looks good. But with this particular count and, set up 3 size 10s is what worked for me. And then we're going to fill them in. And this is another stabilizing edge, but it has a much lower profile. It uses less beads. I think it goes a little faster than the thicker ruffle. And it just looks like that. So I really like this one. This one has a lot of potential, not just for a bracelet, but again, when we did our earrings, these were those statement earrings that were on like a U-shaped finding with a big tassel on them. This was how we did the edge of that earring. So we had a big brick stitch, thing going on, and then we came along and added these and then came back through. And I think on that one, we used a mix of size 8 and 10. So it was a really, really eye-popping look. And that was how that was done. Okay, and so now I'm going to switch to some SuperDuos. And another thing I want to do is get some new thread because this went pretty fast. I've been trying to work with a comfortable length, but it gobbled it all up. So let's get some more. And I'm going to put this on here. I'm doing that usual, flatten the edge thing so that we can get our needle threaded just a little bit easier. I think I'm accidentally using a 12 right now instead of a 10, but size 12 beading needle. That's okay. And scissors. Okay, and so same thing here. I'm just going to weave to exit my edge.
Danielle, while you're doing that, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Do a lot of designers pick an edging style and stick to it, or do they often use many, many different techniques?
Gosh, I've seen combinations.
Like, do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I tend to do the one I'm about to show you. I tend to do this one a lot. It's a SuperDuo edging, a SuperDuo ruffle or wave. And then and my favorite is also the this square and fill. I do that a lot. I recycle that in many designs, not just on a bracelet. And then I think my third favorite is probably this is my favorite for edging like a peyote stitch bracelet for sure. But I probably use this more because I use it for more than just bracelets.
And just because, a year and a half ago, I didn't even know how to make the foundation bracelet that you're working on. This is a great way to one up your loom pieces too.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And things come off the loom looking a little bit lonely, right? They need something. They need extra. I borrowed that one from my friend Sarah. She was, Eva needs extra.
Something.
Yes, it just needs a little bit of something. So that this is one way or many different ways that, you can take that art to the next level and just make it more fun, make it stand out. Especially if you're not using a pattern. If you're using solids, this is a great way to make solids more interesting. And so I'm going to get some SuperDuos. I'll grab those. Some SuperDuo beads. And we need, I want to get one more color going here of, let's get the, it's a little more yellow out. And so what I find is really cute with SuperDuo beads is that, and don't be afraid again to mix this up, but I've been using 10s, 3 SuperDuos in size 10s. just like that. And I'm exiting from that edgemost, set of 8s. I'm going to skip one and go down through the next. And how cute is that? And this one really pops. This one is a standout, attention, eye-catching, like way to finish it. Just really quick, I'm going to get rid of my tail. I don't need my tail anymore. There we go. So here's 3. These are a really pretty red color. It feels like pop of red. I gotta put 4. Oops. Okay. So I'm gonna just skip. Go through the next. And they're loose until you put the next one on. So this one was really wobbly until I put this one on. And that's how it works all the way down, is that the next one stabilizes the one before it. Super handy.
Danielle, a few people recognize this from the Regency jewelry series.
Oh, did we do that in this one?
Even I can't remember. So, clearly a few people have better memories than you and I, which is great. But someone just made a great point. That red looks like a Christmas bulb. And so I definitely can see some holiday themes.
This has very eye-catching luster to it. It's not labeled as a luster finish, but when I look at it, it's definitely an opaque, but it's a shiny opaque. So it gets my attention. I think it's one of my favorites.
I think they are referring to the square and fill is definitely something they've seen you teach before. So that was definitely
sure.
Regency. Yeah.
Oh, this one?
Yeah,
we did this one in the those tassel earrings. I can't remember. I think we called it a statement earring. It was that last class before New Year's of 2020 in December where we did that. I should have put links in the handout. I wish I'd done that. I can actually amend it to do that if that's helpful. I didn't realize I could do an active link in the PDF until and now I know I can do this, so I should go back and add all those. But yeah, we used it in the earring, and this does kind of resemble things we've done in other classes too. I feel like, because there's only so many different things, you just recycle them and they look new when you use them on something else, and you'll be asked, well, hey, how'd you do that? Like, well, it's kind of the same thing I did on One Trick Pony here that I did last time. But if it looks different, then that's still, it's a design win, right? So I just keep doing that because I love it. But there's other ways to do this. So if you didn't want something so tall, because this is really tall, and if you do this on both sides, you have a really tall design. So you could do a shorter version with just one SuperDuo. Here's one way you could do it. Bring that down. And then come back through the other hole of that SuperDuo bead. And pull tight. One more 10. I'm gonna bring that up. And then I'm going to go through those. And this just makes a little hat. And there's possibility here to embellish it on a back pass. I didn't put it in the handout, but if you think about it for just a second, now you've got another layer that you can come back and go through. And because they're SuperDuos, you can use them to turn. And so there's a lot of possibility for you to do more embellishment and then just using this as a base. So I'll show you what I mean. So you've got these little surfaces now. You can come back on a back pass and come up through, add something, and then use this to come down and around. So you can add connectors. And you can also put a little Picot hat on top of them. So let me show a Picot hat really quick. And now I'll just pick up 3 more, right? So this is kind of combining 2 techniques that we just did. Bring that down. So now I've got my 10, a SuperDuo, and then 3 more 10s. Come back down through that SuperDuo. And then that little Picot will sit on top of it. You'll need another 10.
Danielle, a few of us are really smiling because I can see us all saying, that's adorable.
I like it too. Just, it's really cute.
Well, if anyone has their notes out, I think you just have to make a quick note. You'll see it in the recording, but we just refer to this as technique 7B.
Yeah, and it kind of, it talks about it. You can see a picture of it right here in the handout, and it talks to it up here, but I didn't diagram it. But it's the same thing. You just have those 3 little dots, and then you just come down. But something that's not in the handout, because as I was working through, there was just too many and I had to eliminate some. Believe it or not, I had more than 13 ideas for this handout. And so I just kind of baker's dozened it. But what you could do, and I'm just leaving to get back to where, so I can show you what I mean. Something else you can do. And of course you would travel your whole bracelet to do this, but you can put that Picot, that same one we just did, you can put it in between. So now it's joining those. And to get to the next one, assume that, we had a whole row going here, but to get to the next one, you just use your SuperDuo as a place to turn. You just come up and you go ahead and place the next set after that, right? There'd be another flat one here. You do 3 10s or 3 11s, come down through it. So another little stabilizing stitch. I liked this one because it kind of looks like a person. There's the head and the hands and the tummy and the feet. It looks like one of those, there's a ski place that I used to go that had these like little statues of standing. I don't know, it was the top of the mountain of the ski resort, and I saw it. And that's all I see now when I look at that.
It almost looks like an Inukshuk.
Is that the name? Because where I saw this was in British Columbia. So
yeah, it's an Inukshuk.
Yeah, it was up at Whistler.
Yeah.
It's such a cool thing. And that's all I see now when I look at that. It's all I'll ever see.
So Danielle, I want to just tell you, you're awesome for time.
Yay. Awesome.
No issues at all on time. So just make sure you have a glass of water or you're feeling okay to keep going.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear it because I'm worried I wasn't going to cover everything or go too fast, one or the other. No, I'm either going to go.
Sharon believes there'll be nothing left for the second hour.
Oh, well, we have a backup plan for that. So no worries. No worries. I was playing with something and I came up with an idea.
So we're going to just go ahead and refer to this as the Inukshuk edging.
Yeah. He's so cute. He's just the cutest thing ever.
Yeah.
You'll have to tell me how to spell that later. I have no idea how to spell that. All right. Fringe. So if the last section here is all, well, there's a few more, but the real big thing is fringe. And so I'm going to bring out 2 things to show you before I show you on here. So here's a bunch of different ways you can do fringe. You could, of course, I didn't show it here, but you could just do seed beads if you wanted to. You don't have to add a bugle or a larger seed bead. You could just do the same size seed bead, in a little hanging edge, or you can do like kind of a mountain wave with some weight at the end, like a 6. And so I was just going to quickly show a couple ways to do that. But it's hard to envision from looking at this little sampler how cool fringe really is. So I have a fringe finished piece to give you an idea of how neat this can look as a bracelet. And I've been wearing this one around and I fell in love with it because is this the coolest style or what? And it kind of flows a little bit. And to finish it, I made a little square button, and we have a handout for that at the end that we'll show you, but I want to show you the fringe right now. And so to do the fringe, I'm going to start with the bugle version because that's in the order of the handout. So I'm just going to try to stick as much as I can to that. And in the bugle version, I've done kind of like a staggered where I started with a 10 and then a bugle and a 10. And what you'll want to do is skip the last bead you added. And then come up. I'm going through my bugle, through the ton, and then I'm continuing all the way through the bead above. And a lot of you that do fringe earrings will recognize this is the exact same process we use for those. So there's one little fringe, and then there's 3. Bugle, and then 1 more for turning. Bring that down. And so you just keep going, and you don't have to use this staggered counting, but it can give you a really neat look. But you could just do, you know, all 3 or all 5. I'm doing 5 now. And the longer you make it, the more flowy and kind of eye-catching it's going to be. The counts are arbitrary, and you know, just the idea itself is totally up to you, what you like the look of. And so what I do now is I would travel back to my 3. So this one had 5, so I go back to 3. So it goes pretty fast. You know, it probably takes longer than the other edging, but not too much longer. There's that. All right. So there's one way to do some fun fringe. Another way you could do it is you could bring out some size 6 seed beads, or you know, you could use an 8 too. I just thought the 6s gave it some wow. It makes it really, it's really noticeable. The only thing about the 6s, and we'll get into this when we cover the next ones, but the 6s are wider than our base. So I'm not going to be able to put them all right next to each other, which is why on this design, I staggered them, because I wouldn't, if I put them all in the same row, it would give me curve. It would start doing that. And the reason it starts doing that is because these are pushing it out, because they're all, if they were all right next to each other, they wouldn't be able to sit in a flat line like that. So to get around that issue and still get to use the larger bead that I wanted to use, I just did a different height. So in the handout, it shows a version where it goes 1, 3, 5, 3, 1, like we did here. But in this design over here, I just stuck to 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 5 the whole way. And I like that too. I actually think it looked cuter than having the single in there. But you can play around with it and just say, hey, I like this or I don't like this, and choose which one you like the most. So there's a 3. And let's put a 5 on there. And if you wanted, you could try, you know, you could add even more. You could, let's see what it looks like if I put more. Let's try 7. Yeah, I like that too. So that's just really cute. I'll do a few more. And does anyone have any questions about fringe in general? Just the idea of it, or tension or anything like that? I've got a little, I'm going to show you how to fix something really quick. You see, I've got this loose one. I know how I did it. I didn't have this one tightened before I built this one. So to fix it, pull up on that, see, and then come along and pull that. that same process will work for your fringe earrings too, if you find you get little gaps like that.
That was a great tip, Danielle.
I'm glad I saw it. Sometimes you don't see it until you're like way over.
Until
And
you're
if that
finished.
happens, you can still fix it. You just have to go all the way back and then but it works. So, okay, so let's see. I could keep building that, or I can show the next, because we're doing good for time. Should I show the step down?
I
Anybody
think
want
you
to see
should.
it? Sure. Yeah, let's do it. I kind of want to see it myself because I haven't tried the 7 yet. I mean, every time I sit down to do this kind of work, I'm like, oh, I wish I thought of that. Because I have a new idea that I want to see that I like more than the one that I had before. I really like this look. This is a really fun look. It's 5, let's do 3.
Have you ever done it with a crystal, Danielle?
No, I would love to. This is just a beautiful technique, and it makes any bead that you put on this edge just stand out. So if you have a bead that you want to show off or highlight or just make, you know, the star feature, this is the way to do it. Because it's the first thing everyone's going to go to with their eyes. They're going to see that embellishment at the bottom of that little fringe section. So yeah, crystal would be great for this. Little bicone, little sparkle.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just going to keep going like that for the rest of class, but I'll show you guys the next ones. There's, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of those anemone bracelets, where very much like fringe, often they're off the top of pieces. You can do something similar to that on your edge, just using some 6s and a smaller bead, either an 11 or a 10. So I just picked up a 6 and a 10 here. And what's going to happen when I do that is on my next one, it's going to be too close to fit another 6. So, but I like that look. So what I had ended up coming up with for the handout was to do it with some 8s, because, you know, we know a 1-for-1 with 8, right? So you can get the same look, or you can simulate that look, but just use an 8, it'll work. Another thing you could do is kind of switch back and forth. So, and again, that one is a new idea as well, but you could go 6, 8, 6, 8, and that way you could get the chance to use that 6/0 bead that you're kind of had your heart set on using without having to worry about your spacing concern. So I'll show you what I mean here. You can pull that 6 back in. It just kind of is more forgiving to if you throw that 8 in there. Otherwise, again, you'll get that bend where it starts to do that. Yeah, so that's the anemone, one version of an anemone that you could do. Of course, you could do that on the top of the bracelet too. I know you guys have seen lots of people do that. It's a really cool design idea. Let's do one more 8. But it's made the same way as the fringe. So that's why I kind of included it in that same spot. And again, I get to show you that trick again. See, I believe I may have actually nicked my thread there. So I'm going to pull it back. And fix it really quick. And so it's gone. If you're watching for it in real time as you're working, you'll catch it. But whenever you're doing these down, up, it happens. That's why the brick ones are refreshing in that way. So that brings us to the brick stitch stuff. So with brick stitch, you can use any bead. With the disclaimer that if you're using a different size bead, you're going to need to play around with your thread bridges. So what I mean by that is the same thing when you're doing a brick stitch, you kind of have to feel your way through which thread bridge should I go under for this next step. It's the same problem. I run into that a lot, but let's just go ahead and work through it. We'll start with some 10s. So I've got 2 10s. Whenever you're starting your new brick stitch segment, you always start with 2. And I'm just going to go ahead and go under. I think I'll go under the first thread bridge since 10s are smaller than 8s. Come up through the second one that I added. And if you're feeling at all like that first bead is not straight enough and it's going to bug you, you can go back through it, pick up a thread bridge. And I pick up my thread bridges by going through those beads below and then come up through that second one. And it should straighten out that first bead really nicely.
Danielle, while I have you, would you mind telling everyone what purple you used?
Oh yeah, that is Groovy Grape. I'll get the number really quick. It's
No, they know, Danielle.
They know.
They're pretty sure it was Groovy Grape. So
yeah, that color is, it's my favorite and it's Alex's favorite. You took all of the ones. They were all missing from the boxes you sent me, Carmi. For a while, I was like, well, where's all the purple? Yeah, they were in his room. He took them. Those tubes were. So I had to negotiate to get some of them back. All right, and so I got, there's my fourth in a row. And so it's, you know, it's not exactly doing 1 for 1. See, I've got 4 beads sitting over 3, but that is brick stitch and it's challenging in that way. So here, I'm going to move to 8s and see what happens. Actually, let me get another color of 8. Okay. And so here's a new color. And kind of come up through thread bridge here. And so the next idea, I'm sure you guys are all having the same idea. Well, do I have to keep going in a row with the same size? Well, no, you can actually just keep changing it up. And it looks really cool. So now I'm going to switch to 6. And so I'm making kind of like a rolling wave along the side. Next thread bridge. So the design possibilities of that alone are just cool. Because think about all the cool stuff you could make, you know, a large wave, or we can make a tiny wave. I'll just do a tiny wave really quick. Okay, so there's an 8 down to a 10. Come up back to an 8. Now a 6. Okay, 8 again. And this is another one that is stabilizing for a piece. So if you have one of those kind of wonkies, there's a little mini mountain. So a long version there, and then like a little mini version there. So cool. So many things you can do with that. And then last but not least, we're going to need our bugles one more time. I'm going to weave up to exit over here because I've got more space to show stuff in this side. And it looks like we're doing pretty good on time. So now that we're through our agenda, we have extra playtime. We can just cover any questions, anything we want. But to show the last one, and here's the handout to show you what it looks like. It's adding a bugle as a bar. And you're going to recognize some things from this technique. And they're really the only reason that it's different than, for example, square and fill is because you got to play around with the spacing. So I thought it was worth showing it, but this is another one of those ones where you could come back in on another pass and fill in these little gaps if you wanted to. It also looks really cool just by itself like that. So to make that, you'd want to take one bugle at a time. And then I always just kind of hold them next to it because you might be working with a different size bugle. These are size 3 Czech, but there's so many bugles out there. And as long as they're not super long in a way that they would interfere with being able to, you know, bend in a bracelet, you can use it. but I think what I did for the handout was I skipped one and went down to the next one. So I'm going to stick with that. You'll have to help it a little bit, especially the first couple. Come up through the next one. Bring that down. I'm skipping an 8 and coming down to the next one. And it just looks so neat. A trick for getting this to work out fast, let that bead fall down on your thread first before you try to go and stitch into the next one. It'll just speed it up for you, having to adjust it. Yay. You could do that in all different colors. That's just super fun. So what I was thinking I might do is do a backfill on it just to kind of see how would that look. Let's just try that idea. So I just wove around so I can be exiting from the same bead that I went down when I added the last bugle. So I'm going to come through that bugle now. Okay. What happens if I put a 10? I think an 8 might fit too. Let's just play with it. Yeah, see, the 10 has a little bit of space, so we could try a size 8. That's really cute. And it's perfect. So that was another one that didn't quite make it into our baker's dozen, but it's just a really easy way to next level up that idea. Put those in there. And then you could get even crazier, because why not, right? You could come down. I'm doing a turn just so I can get back where I want to be. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing again here. I'm going to come up through the bugle, but now I'm going to go through the 8 as well. And I'm going to pick up a bunch of 10s. See how many, I don't know yet. Let's look at it. I want it to be a little bit longer so it arcs. Let's see what 7 looks like. You could put that on there. I don't know. I can't decide if I like it or not. But that I like.
Cindy thought it was cute.
The little arc?
Yep.
Yeah, there's a possibility there to make it stay more rounded. If I'd put maybe an 8 after this and then more, I would need to play with that. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hang on, how many? Yeah, 6, 7. So here's that little arc again.
I don't know about everybody else, but I never would have thought to add a bugle to the edge. Has anybody else added a bugle? No. I'm going to spend more time on the edge than on the actual piece now.
Yeah, that's where I kind of ended up too. There's only so many patterns and things you can do with these basic stitches, but you're real possibly.
I'm watching the sidebar, Danielle, and yeah, you're getting genius. It really feels it. I love it because for some reason, I buy bugle beads all the time and then I don't do anything with them. So I've got a stash ready to go.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I've got a pile of them too. They're so pretty. And I'm often kind of stumped by, well, what can I do with them? So this is just one really cool idea of a way that you can really level up your design into something really pretty great. Another thing I was thinking is if you put another 8 here, and then you just did 3 or 4 of the 10s and then another 8, it would give it a little stability, because what I'm wanting it to do is stay put like that. It's also, I didn't try doing another one, but sometimes wobbly things become less wobbly when you add the next one. Let's see what happens if I do that. Because that's what's driving me a little crazy, is it's not staying in a rounded shape.
Yeah,
And I'll get hung up on.
Yeah, Cindy's wondering if you put a larger bead at the center.
Oh, that might work too.
Yeah.
Let's try it. We've got time, so why not? Let's see. Because now's the chance to try all these great ideas that I know you guys are having. That needle's going to drive me crazy. I'm going to switch it. There's another one. See, told you it was the needle, right? Here we go. Okay. Let's try 3 and then an 8, maybe. Okay. Yeah, that looks cool. Look at that. It does exactly that. It stabilizes it perfectly. And then I added 1 too few beads on that side, but I do like that. I think, okay, I think what I would do here is I would go down to some 11s. I'm using 10s right now, but I would go down to an 11, and this would be just spot on perfect.
Love it.
All right. So let's see, we're doing so good.
Danielle, what I'd like to recommend, we're just past the halfway mark, and it is a live class that people will get the recording for. But if people just want to take 2 minutes, a quick run and get a glass of water, do anything like that for yourself while you're, if you have a second, Danielle, take a glass of water. And in 3 minutes, we'll start the next segment.
Awesome. Okay, sounds great.
Give everyone a tiny run break.
Perfect. I'm actually going to clean up my mat a little bit. Oop.
So anybody who's sitting, pretty much everyone has their camera off. Would you just let me know in the sidebar that you're hearing everything okay and that you saw all the techniques properly? Just give me a little feedback before we move on. If there was anything that you didn't get that Danielle would demo again. Danielle, you're doing a great job cleaning your mat.
Yeah, I thought I'd take the chance because it's got a lot of beads on it now, and it's gonna start to get tangly and
I don't know. I think I get along with Sharon. Sharon, I think you and I are just scraping it all into one bucket, right? This is when I make bead soup at the end of these projects. No way I'm putting it back into the vial, but for those of you who do it, I give you lots of bonus.
I know, but if I didn't do it, you'd be shipping me beads a lot more often.
I know I would. Yeah.
It's
Working
like
at- Working at a bead company really does spoil you.
it does. But then well, so I have all these kind of like half done projects. And what was it we had a break whenever that was. I think it was the Labor Day one.
Yep.
And I sat there and I went through all those unfinished ones. And I salvaged so many beads, like 3-4 tubes of every size of beads, just from all those kind of like unfinished half done demo pieces.
Yeah.
You know,
Good for
just
you.
like things like that. I had a bucket of them just sitting there. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Okay, so I think we're good. I watched a few people come and go. So Danielle, if you've had a little refresher,
I
you're
did,
good to
yeah.
go.
All right. So I guess my first question is, do you guys want to see any more types of edging? If there's questions about that, we can definitely do another demo there. Or we could just move into some new stuff, which was talking a little bit about how I made this one.
Sidebar thought everything was going great, and I didn't get any questions on a technique. So I think if you go into the surprise extra new stuff, that's where we'd love to see that.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. So something that we kind of just created this at the last minute, because as I was trying to play with, demoing, what do these look like in a finished piece? And I really wanted to do the fringe, because the fringe is hard to see in a small segment. So that's where this was born. And then I got to the end and I thought, well, this is a really cool time to use another seed beaded closure, which is something we were going to focus on this month, is how to turn your seed beads into findings. And so that's what I did here. We just kind of made a really quick button and then finished this little very cool looking boho design that way. And so how this was made. Oh, go ahead.
And I'm just gonna ask everybody. Millie has the PDF, and so if we put the PDF in the sidebar now, is everybody able to download it? And we'll just wait. I'm just gonna make sure everyone can. If you can't download it, you're on your phone or everything like that. Either direct message me on Facebook and ask for it, or email Millie your email address and she'll send it directly to you. So I'm going to let everyone see if they can. So Tracy and a few others, you can just private message Millie right here, or direct message me on the John Bead Facebook page saying you would like the new PDF, and we will make sure everyone in this class gets it some way today. If you just tell us the best way of getting it.
Thanks, Carmi.
Well, no, thank you, Danielle, because this is the surprise and I want to make sure everyone gets this PDF.
I'm getting the thread ready there. All right, erase this up just a tiny bit.
Okay, so Millie's on it, waiting for anyone who couldn't download it, and good to go, Danielle.
Awesome. Okay. So before I get started with the button, I wanted to just double check and make sure if anyone had any questions about what I did differently here with my base. If anyone's curious about that, what it is it's the same thing with just 2 columns. So instead of doing our, how we stacked 8 and then we went ahead and went, 2 beads, skip 2 beads, go through. I did that same exact thing. It's a 2 drop, but it's only got 1 column. So it looks like that, right? And that's what that base is. It is possible for me to show that if anyone is iffy on how to start that.
So far, so good, Danielle.
First, good. Yeah, we can cover it at the end if someone decides they want to see that. But let me jump into the button because it's just a really fun way to finish your work, and it's quick. It doesn't take very long at all. So you'll just take some 6s, and you want to go 6, 10. Do that 4 times. So you'll get 4 on the needle there. You'll need 1 more 10. And then go ahead and make a ring. So to make a ring, just leave a little bit of a tail that you can use to weave in. And come back through all of those beads again. And then go ahead and pass back through your first bead. And so at this point, if you feel like it's tight enough, you can go ahead and, keep going for the next step. If you wanted to resecure that by going through all those beads one more time, that can be good too. It can be helpful just to give it, a little more stability. But so far you'll just have a little ring that was made with 4 6s and 4 10s. And then make sure you're exiting from one of those 10s. It doesn't matter which one. So I brought my thread through to exit from one of those size 10 beads. And so there's that. So I'm going to go on to that step 2. So you want to pick up 5 of your size 10 seed beads. There's 5 there. And I'm going to jump over my 6 and go through my next 10. And so the beads will just sit in a little loop like that. And I do that same thing again. And this, when you get to the end, it looks like a quatrefoil, which would be a great design element in another type of design. It doesn't have to be a button. I was looking at this, and I'll show you when I get to that 4th petal done, but I was looking at it as potentially its own bracelet, right? Just trying to figure out how I would connect it. So here's my last little loop of 5. It's a little tight, but I'm getting through that 10 over there. And if your tail's in the way, like mine is, just kind of getting that. So there's a little quatrefoil that you'll have. So think about how cool things you could do with that. There's a lot of different design possibilities with just this element here. And so from where we are, exiting from that 10, we want to go through the next 4 10s in your, in your design. So just stitch through. Here's my first 2. And the next 2. So I'm exiting from the 4th one. I was there and I went through 1 2 3 4. So now I just need a 10 and an 8 and a 10. I'm going to skip the 3 that are kind of nestled there in between the 6s. So skip 1 2 3 and go through the next 4. It'll probably only let you go through 2, and then you'll just have to come back and travel through 2 more. How many did I get through? Okay, so here's where I was. And then I went through the first one, you're going to go through 4, and then the next one, just the 3. So let me show you guys, because I know that was a little confusing, but we were here and we stepped up to 4, and then we added, so we stepped up through 1 2 3 and 4, exited here, skipped these 3, strung in 10 and 8 and a 10, and now we're going to be going through 3, right? And then we'll string these, skip those 3 that are nestled in there, go through the next 3. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to pick up a 10 and an 8 and a 10, So remembering, skip those 1, 2, 3. And go through the next 3 here. And it's just a little confusing because that first step up, we went through 4. So just, you know, note that it can get a little confusing in that one spot. There's 1, 2, 3. And I'm just going through 2 there because it just kind of was easier. So I'm going to catch 1 more. And I've got 1 to go. Here's 1, 2, and 3. So there's a 10, 8, 10. Skipping those 3. And I'm back where I started. And so there's our little square button. And one of the first things I did is I just went around an entire additional time around the square to reinforce everything.
So Danielle, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you create this because you were too lazy to go get a button from another area?
Correct. I was lazy. I was sitting there. My box of like Michael's findings was across the room. And I just didn't want to get up. So that's what I did. I just made a button. And so I'm very glad I didn't get up and get my findings box because I like this a lot. All right. And so that's pretty secure. And there's our little square button. And so to attach it to something, what you'd want to do, I'm just going to quickly show a couple ways that you could weave in. So to weave in, one of the most secure things you could do is go down into like one of the center ones. And I happen to have come down where I had my tail hanging out. And because I've got a 6 and I can hide it, if you feel like it, not a must, but if you want to save yourself a little time, you could just do a little knot there. You could also just keep going in a circle twice around that center. Both would do the trick, but now that I've got that, I can take my needle through my 6, which will hide that knot in there. Remove it. And I'm just going to come on over here. Get in there thing. I want to get rid of my tail so I can show you guys how to string it on as a button.
Danielle, could you make a bracelet of square buttons?
That's where I'm going with this. See, you guys are the first to see it, but this will become something. I just can't decide. I can't decide if I wanted to stop. If I want to stop here because I liked how that looked a lot. And so I was thinking that linked together in some kind of like thinking right angle weave way. There's a lot of different ways I could have done that. And so that's one possibility. And then of course this, you could replace that 8 with a SuperDuo and then link it. If you wanted to do that, that would work too. There's just 2 ideas and we could come up with more if we just think about it for a little bit. And so I feel like this, in some way, this will come back. We're going to turn it into something, right? Okay, so there's all of my weave in. And I did do a knot. Trim. And all you have to do now to get it to attach to your piece, typically when you end one of these designs, let's go over here to this one. When you end one of these designs, what you end up with is a lot of extra thread at the end that you can use to attach your button. And I'm wishing I hadn't pulled my needle off that one. Okay. We're good there. Okay, so now I want my button to be kind of like in the center. And on this design, this is different than the other one because it has an extra column going on. This one, I did the same thing I'm about to show you. I just exited from the center. So what I'm doing here is getting to the center of this design. So I'm happy with that. And you can either do 3 or 4. Come up through the center. And then I did this with 2. Play with it and see what you like, but 2 looked cute to me. So 2 size 10s, and then I'm going to come back through the button and go through all those beads again. And then when I get down here, I'm going to go through the opposite one that I exited to make a kind of central connection point there. So I'm coming out of here, so I'm just going to go through like this one right here. And that's with 4 size 8s, which is a pretty good little, gap for getting a button to go. And 2 was not enough. So how weird. Definitely want to play with it. My tension might have been tighter, but there I've got just 2 and it was fine. And this is very strong. I've been wearing this, but on this design, 2 was not enough to hold it. So you definitely want to play with it and see. I'm going to do a Picot now and see how a Picot looks. And I'm going to take those off.
Sharon would have used another purple bead.
Would another purple bead be good? Let's try that. That might be better. This is something you'll have to play with when you're attaching it, because I'm not 100% sure why my second design didn't work with 2. I've only made this one time. I literally whipped that up yesterday. And so it's just a little bit weird. Let's try it. And another thing I did wrong last time when I was making this was I made a loop before I made my button. And so I had to force my button to work. That was another reason I tried to keep the profile lower on this one by only adding a few. But if you do it the right order and make your loop afterward, then you can just put as much height here as you'd like and not worry about it. So let's see how that looks. I went down through all of those. Same thing again, I'm just going to hug that bead that's in the center just to give us an idea of how it looks. Oh yeah. So I did put a little 8 on top of my 6, but you didn't have to do that. If I hadn't done that, that 6 might sit sideways. And that would look even cuter, I think, if it was just the 6 by itself. No, we can try it. We're doing so great on time, why not?
Danielle, you're missing a good joke on the sidebar.
Oh, I want to know the joke.
We're laughing because someone just finished making the bracelet and they're about to start the 13 techniques. And meanwhile, you finished and moved on, and you're making a button, and they think you've probably solved world peace at this point.
Well, keep in mind though, I had my base done before class, so I had a head start. That's awesome. These are they take a good hour to make, so that's pretty good. Yeah, so it was Sharon's idea, right?
Yep.
Sharon, yeah, that's the best way. I like that the most. Just a 6 right there. Yeah, of course you'd want to reinforce this, you go back up through everything.
I'm curious if anyone's going to wear their sampler or if it's just going to be their sample. I think this is the beading equivalent of a quilter sampler, where you learn all the stitches and then you keep that sampler handy for reminding. That's what this bracelet is. A great reference. Keep that in your studio.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I've referred to this, the class sample. I've referred to this a bunch of times for ideas. Even just to give me scale. If I'm working with a bead size, then I'm not sure how it's going to look next to the other one. It's a great scale reference too. So yeah, I'll be hanging on to that one because it's just very cool. And my button's attached on this side. And I feel like it's, you know, it's pretty secure. I might go through it one more time. If I was off camera, I would go through it one more time, weave in this, trim it. And then we need a button loop, right? And so button loops can be tricky. Sometimes I do great, and then sometimes I really struggle with my button loops. I always either make them too big or too small. But I did have a little trick for getting, you know, the peyote edge to work with it. So I thought I'd show that really quick since they're doing so great. My thread is mangled. There we go. Oh, what did I do? Y'all, I might weave in a new one. Does anyone else use flush cutters on their beading thread? I tend to use those sometimes. So I'm over here on this edge and I want to make a loop, but I don't really have a an edge that looks, you know, finished on the inside. So something that I did on this design was I did 3 size 10s to flatten my edge so that it's, you know, in one plane. I'll show you what I mean. And this is just kind of a, you know, if you like it. So I got 3 10s. I go through my next 2. And let's stick with that other 10. There we go. Okay. And so that can give you a flat edge now. And if I did it in the same color, you probably wouldn't notice it right away that it was a different size bead if I'd done that in turquoise, for example. So now I've turned my peyote into a flat edge, which can be super handy for building things like our button loop off of. And in the case of this design, I had a really thin band and I just kind of went around one circle. With this, what I would probably want to do, and you know, of course, you could always just go from here to here with a loop, and that would be totally fine. But this is a smallerish button. So to kind of mimic the size that I did over on my other bracelet, I'm going to exit from that one and build my loop. And remember when I said I made this one a little too small? I'm going to go a little higher than this one. So on this one I had 7, so let's do 9. And then I did this kind of cute little 3 size 8 thing. And let's put 9 more. Okay, and so once you've got that strung, you got something that looks a little bit like that, go ahead and come back through those 3 size 10s. There's your loop. And I'm just going to go through the next 2 here. Now my thread is a little short. And if I'd had more time, I would have woven in a longer strand. You'd reinforce that 2 more times going around and then weave your thread in to your work. But I want to test it before I do anything else and make sure that I can actually button it. You don't want it to be super loose. If you have to pull on it a little bit to get it to work, that's good. But yeah, so I mean, I could go to 8 if I wanted to, or this will probably be fine. It's just I'm getting a little bit of a gap, and I'll show you what I mean here. This one was a smidge too small, but now that it is able to be put on. But what you get is a much closer connection so that when you're wearing this, the button connects and touches both sides. So there's an optimum there that you can play with and see. On this one, I think that optimum might be 8. I did 9 yellows. So I might go back and take that out and do 8 there. So button loops, you gotta play with them. And just the best way to do that is just make it and test it. And so if I wanted to redo that, I just take off my needle and go ahead and pull it out. And go ahead and make that change if I wanted to do that. All right, and so let's see. Hermie, what do you think about? Is there any edges that I didn't show that anyone had a question about, or just any question? And we've got extra time here. Just share ideas, anything really.
I think techniques were good, Danielle. I'm gonna let everybody answer on the sidebar. The bracelet, obviously, I think we have a lot of experienced beaders in the class today. So creating the quick bracelet makes sense to a lot of people. But in case there's anybody new, starting that bracelet is the key to their weekend. So it might make sense to just show us one more time how to make the plain bracelet.
Okay.
And, oh God, Pat's already finished. I'm seeing some he's got going almost, so that's great. So you called that
is so
bracelet
cool.
two drop peyote.
Mm-hmm.
2-drop peyote with size 8 beads. And then you've just showed us how to finish it without any edging if we wanted to use a button and a loop.
Yep.
So that alone is a cute finished piece before you even add edging.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're really good. Great class comments. So that's awesome. So Danielle,
my thread. I think that's a great idea to show. Did you say to show the single column?
Let's just show the 2-drop starting point again, just in case somebody really wants to make the bracelet over the weekend. I will say for anyone who took the class last weekend, how you showed us how to start was brilliant. And I definitely, Pat said, no, she's only got 1.5 inches done. That's okay. It's more than a lot of us. Good. So yes, if people can make the bracelet this weekend, then they're going to have something blank to try doing all these edging techniques on. And I think having seen the class live, the PDF makes more sense. So hopefully you can do all of these on the weekend without the recording, just by watching the PDF, reviewing the PDF, and then Monday they'll have the recording for anything.
Yeah, exactly. And so so the way we did the edge first in the main class was we strung 8 beads. And for this one, I'm just going to string the 4. So remember we did 8 before. Now I'm just doing 4. And I'm going to pick up 2, skip those 2, and go through these 2. Same thing as before, I'm going to pull tight. And you see we get this the usual peyote stitch looking thing, but now I'm going to pick up my 2 and go back. And it'll be a little looser. When you're working with single column, it stays looser for a little bit longer. It doesn't tighten up in the first couple of rows that, the 2-column design did. But we also did this technique with, it's a 2-drop peyote with just 1 column. And we did this with Delicas in February with sliders that slid over it. This is actually that same exact process that we did for that class. And I am pinching it to keep that tension tight. And I'll have to do that for a good 6 rows usually before I feel like I'm just kind of sailing. But look how fast you can get one of these made. And I have tried this with 3 and it works great too. It's a little less forgiving tension wise. Those first couple rows, if you're doing 3 drop, meaning you would have picked up 6 and you're doing 3 back, 3 back. If you do it like that, it will take a longer for your tension to feel tight. But you can always reinforce it as you go. There's no rule that says you can't, do your first, weave in there, like kind of do a little loop around to strengthen it before you keep going. If that's going to be like a source of frustration, I'd recommend doing that. I do that a lot, actually. I'll reinforce my first 3 rows and then keep going. If I have the, if I have the room in my bead. If I'm doing a design with 11s, I don't, but they tend to be less loose anyway. It's just kind of the big beads that do it. Yeah, so I basically just kept going. And I'll keep going for maybe another, since we've got time, and I'll just show the edge again, the way I did it on that bracelet. So it's basically, it was a combination of 2 of the techniques that we had in the handout combined into one design. Using just 3 sizes. You just need the 6 and the 8 and the 10. Okay, maybe that's enough to show it. We'll do one more here. Okay, and so what I actually did first, I'm gonna bring it back over here. I did the fringe first, and then I came along and did the brick stitch after that. I don't think there's any reason you couldn't reverse it, but that just happened to be what I did. And so that is, again, that's brick stitch with a size 6 at the top there. We'll do that really quick, but let's throw a couple of these on. So there's 3 and a 6 and then another 10. This is that fringe that we were doing on the second to last page of the handout. So pretty easy, and also, kind of meditative. You're just doing the same thing. And you just keep going like this, alternating 5 and 3 count. So just picking up, here's 3, 4, and 5. Here's a 6, and then another 10. And you just, you skip that last 10. Come back through all those beads. And if you just keep going like that, you end up with a whole section like that. It looks like I started with like a 1 there. I think I didn't like that and I wouldn't do it again, but that's what I did on that one. I like this better. And then to do your brick stitch edge at the top, again, I'm starting with 2 because it's the first one I'm doing. And this was definitely one where I didn't like my edge beads sitting up sideways, so I came down through that first bead, under that thread bridge that's under it, and then back up through that second bead to make it go flat, or flattish. And then you just keep going. And this goes really fast because you're working with a large bead and it just kind of flies by. And yeah, so that's the whole bracelet. And then you saw how I did the loop there, where I filled in my my 3/10s to make it flat. And got that loop on there, and then I used the center point for my button. So just one of a great many ideas that you can try and make it your own and add a bunch of different colors and different counts. Is everyone okay with the 2-drop peyote? Anyone still have questions about that?
I think we're good.
We could do a detailed, like, hey, this is what's coming kind of like reveal. I haven't shown November yet.
Show us November.
You want to see it? Yeah, so I'll show you the rest of October and then November. And we showed it last time, but I'll just quickly breeze through. So next week is donut, right? I believe next week is donut.
Yes.
And so this is another one where it's a next level class because we've done herringbone columns before. And not only have I done it, but on the day of making, oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Her name, was it right? Lies Artist?
Yes.
She did the same technique with color blocking, which was gorgeous. So it was and she had a pattern going. So you guys all know how to do that squared herringbone, which is just it's basically 2-column round herringbone. So what I did for this class, I wanted to show something else you can do with that technique, next level it up to attach like a little donut. This is the gemstone donut that they just got in at the Michaels. This could be a necklace. You can see how versatile this becomes if you wanted to just keep going and make it a necklace. Lots of possibility there. But you basically just separate the columns and then connect them. So a lot of you are looking at this saying, oh yeah, I know how that. But we'll go through that. And then just to have something a little extra, I used a little hematite, like I guess they're discs that I found on the strung wall. And I just started like looping around. And that's another really easy pattern that you don't need a pattern for. And I'll just show you how I did it. It's something that you'll see as you're working. And it's a really cool look to add that spiral. You could do that all over like a whole. I did one for John Bead where I did it with pearls. And it was just gorgeous. You just keep going and lots of cool possibility there. So there's that one.
Yeah, Danielle, I'm going to stop you. I'm laughing because Cindy said what I've been saying. She has a quartz donut that she has no idea what to do with.
Oh, yeah.
As do I. I have had a donut in my stash for so long. And so I'm really looking forward to this class too, figuring out what to do with this donut shape that it just doesn't seem like it's an easy thing to work with unless you have a bail. So being able to wear it with beads is going to be awesome.
Oh, that's so great. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, this was one that I'm stumped by donuts too. And I once received one in a bead swap challenge where I did with another artist. We each sent each other beads that challenged us, and she sent me a donut, of course. It's like, what do I do? And that's when I came up with this was, and I've seen variations of this idea turned into a great many things. So this is not just, useful for a donut shape, but for a lot of different connections. And it'll get those creativity muscles going, and you guys you'll be flying from that class. This one is going to be really, this is another one where we're going to have a lot of extra time because this is fast. And there's a variation or two that I can show that will give us, a little bit more, like I can show how to make a bigger toggle. So we'll cover that, but this is a very secure, way to make another little finished without any findings, right? And I think I'll probably be asked about this bracelet. So we'll recap that in class, but we've done it before. This was that one where I used way too many crystals and didn't give everyone a heads up, but they needed to buy like 4 strands of crystals. Pat, you'll remember that. So this was that class, and it's just a 6-0 substituted for that crystal with a little 10-0 embellishment on the side. And that's all it is. And we'll cover that. So that's the one after donut. And then the last one in October are these cool earrings. So these are those little like peyote in the round discs that you can make by doing just like a mandala peyote. It's even count and it goes really quick. So this is a way to use up those size 8 seed beads or 11s or I've done them with 11 and 8. I haven't really done a 6, but I can't say it won't work. And I'll probably need to try it before class so that I can answer that for sure. But I always really do it with 8s and 11 because they're gorgeous. And these are 8s that I'm showing here in the apricot mix.
And Danielle, we're doing that class because at that point, we're going to be close to holiday gifting and holiday craft sales. And so this is us trying to help you find a way, if you're doing any kind of a church bazaar sale or anything like that, that you can have a product that is fast to whip up, but has a lot of wow.
Exactly. Yeah. And these do get a lot of attention. They were a bestseller for me in a lot of the booths that I did. People would grab like a couple pairs in different colors, and they don't take long to make. They don't use a lot of materials. So they're great gift and great for selling. And let's see. So the next one after that is another workshop. And that one is a boutique pendant. A really cool chain. So this is a 2-hour. And it's kind of a versatile, can become many things. So there's a version as a necklace. And then I did these in the colors that, Pat, this was your suggested colors that you liked. And they are beautiful. So thank you for that suggestion as an earring. And this is a really, really fun like spin on, you know, just like, it's a little bit of right angle weave. And I was also thinking this chain could become, because it looks like a buttonhole. So this chain could also become like a wrap bracelet, and you could put a button on one side, right? And then it would be completely adjustable. It could also become like one of those convertibles, like a necklace or a bracelet, because you can just see if you wrap it around a bunch of times, how cool that would look. So we can play with that. It's another 2 hours, so
Danielle, I just want to let people know that are asking that this is another premium class. And I think you guys know it's hard to find a premium class because there's a lot of Cricut classes in that category. But this class is live and you can sign up for it right now if you find the premium classes.
yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely there on the Michaels site already.
Yeah, the best way to find it is to go to the usual spot, michaels.com/classes. And then they have a link there, it says cutting edge classes. And you click on that and then it brings up a bunch of stuff. And we're like the 3rd one in that list at the moment, last time I checked.
Yep.
So, and you'll see a picture of this design on it. So that's that. That's the first class in November. I believe that's November 2nd.
Mm-hmm. I'll have to check.
I'm just going to bring over this board because it's a little easier to show it this way. But and then the next class after that is, actually it's a little hard to see on there. Let's pull it off. Is another one of our regular classes. It's an hour. So not one of the premiums, but this one is the 2nd class in November. Speedy earrings and a way to combine them. This can also be an ornament. That was an hour or a necklace pendant. So this is another one of those ones that we can play around with and do a lot of different ideas, but the counts on this can be changed. This is a very like in style thing right now. I'm seeing a lot of a trend out there for hoop earrings with big hoops. So this is kind of our spin on that, and already kind of in holiday colors, and then a more minimalist, elegant design, and then a way to put it together. So you can have like kind of a dangly going on there. So that's the 2nd in November, 2nd class in November. And then last but not least, we have this kind of fun idea of a way to do what's kind of like a dangle. And this would be cool as a necklace too, like a choker necklace, but as a bracelet, also really awesome. And this has possibilities for expanding on as well. So we'll talk a lot about where you can take this, but just for the basic design, since this is one of our shorter classes, I just have kind of a simpler, you know, kind of intro to how to do it. But of course, we'll talk next level stuff for that class too. But it is just, yeah, it's a right angle weave with a dangle. And it'll get your kind of concept ideas going for like, what else could I put on that? And that's all we've got so far. I'm working on Delica December right now. So I've got a a peyote stitch delica design with little kind of not like super holiday, but still has like a festive feeling to it, little trees with some gold and some greens and a different like ombre of red. So that's something I've got done. And then I'm currently working on the Resto Delica December. So look forward to that.
I'm going to ask Felicia to put the camera on you so Danielle, you could see a few people.
Oh, sure, yeah. And I might switch to my gallery view so I can see everyone. I usually have my big screen up so that I can see my own hands so I don't go off camera because I keep doing that. And so I always have my own hands on the big screen. So I only ever see like 1 or 2 people at the top. So let's see if I can switch it. I know how to do it.
Almost everybody has their camera off, Danielle, so you won't see too much. Oh, good. Oh, turn your cameras on, everybody.
Hey guys.
That's great.
Oh, awesome. I see Valerie, you're holding up beautiful pieces. So cool. Oh, it's so great to see you guys. I never really get to see everyone and say hi. So this is really fun for me. Thank you. What a great class. So I'm glad you guys had fun, and thank you so much for being here and spending your Friday with us. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next week as well.
Nope.
And is it next? Oh my goodness, we're not. Yeah, that's right. Next week, and I gotta keep remembering because I'll be calling you guys on the phone. It's Canadian Thanksgiving next week, yeah. Right? The 7th.
Yeah.
October
So
7th.
Monday, I believe it's Monday the 11th is Canadian Thanksgiving. So we decided not to have a class the Friday before, but we'll be back the following week. Absolutely.
Gotcha. Yeah. And see, I'm going to be calling you guys on the 11th, like, hey, where is everyone?
You're going to be very lonely, but we're going to make you work American Thanksgiving because we're open.
Oh, that's no problem. Yeah. I don't do kitchen. So yeah, I'll have to have my mom come up and make Thanksgiving.
So thank you, everybody. And again, if you have any questions for Danielle, you can always reach out or go through our various social media pages, and we just keep posting everything.
Thanks. And I see Sharon's holding something up, but I've got a block in front of it. I can't see. I'm going to close it really quick. Oh my goodness. Did you put the eye on your shoe? That is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Oh, that is so neat. Oh, wow. That is awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Sharon. All right, you guys, I'm going to let you go and get on with your Friday. And thank you again for being here and have a great weekend.